This is a video on my land series. We're at the bottom of the mountain. We've been driving down it all night and spent the day at my property. And now we're at the intersection where to the left of us, we'll follow the ridge line of the base of the mountain, which has more stability and rock base, and is how I drove in. Or I go forward, which is the direction I'm facing, which is through the flats where I have another property, by the way, and is typically, if it's been rained or snow or whatever, it gets wet, it's going to be saturated for weeks and it will be muddy. And so the roads have been rained on and they have dried out, but it's risky. And by going forward, I'm taking a huge risk and definitely going to be driving through some mud. But if I drive through anything more than just the slightest bit of mud, I can get stuck. And if I go to the right, it'll be the same problem. And the road that I live on is actually to the right and then forward. And same problem. If I get stuck on that road, it's a bad situation. So for the fun of it, because I like the energy and adrenaline, I'm going to go pick the road forward, which may or may not make it and be safe, as opposed to the road to the left, which I know is safe, but it's way bumpy and an extra mile or so. So here we go. I think we'll be just fine though. So that noise is wet dirt. So that tells me that I'm driving on wet dirt, even if it doesn't look like it. You will easily just sink right down. If it gets too soft. So if you're out here, living out here, and it rains hard for many hours to a day, you're definitely going to be stuck out here for weeks. You're not going to be driving down this road or another road like it. There's a few roads out here like this. Well, this is a good maintained road, but this is one of the main traveled roads. Very few people out here, but regardless, you're not going to be able to drive down these roads is the point. So it's only because it's been sunny for over a week and hot out, even though it's freezing out. And when I say freezing, I mean below 30, the 20s and the low 20s. So I don't remember how cold it was last night. I didn't verify, but I know it was below 28 degrees last night. I'm plenty warm. I've got sleeping bags, multiple sleeping bags, blanket, thermals, socks, and double of all of that. I have 2 pairs of thermal shirts, 2 pairs of thermal pants, and that's just for a one-day trip that I may not need. I drove out here in shorts, by the way. Shorts, thongs, flip-flops, and sandals, and a t-shirt. And as I made it to about halfway past Chico, the weather drastically started changing hour by hour. So you got 2 choices when the ground starts softening up and you think it's getting wet. You can just gas it up, obviously. You'll push through a puddle, no problem. Or you can assess that, because one small puddle turns into a bigger puddle. If you run into 2 or 3 puddles back to back within so many feet of each other, stop. Look at your tracks behind you. Get out and look at the tracks behind you and see how deep your truck is going or your car is going. Surmise for a minute, even right that moment, that you would be stuck. If you did what I suggested and you stopped the second that things looked like they were, getting soft in the road, and you were sinking or having, you'll know because you'll have sluggish problems driving. And so if you immediately stop after you've driven through a few puddles, if you start going sideways, for instance, or anything like that to get through the puddle, but then you stop and you look at the tracks behind you and see how deep you're going, and if you can tell that, yeah, you're actually sinking in the dirt, then, and again, if you right then got stuck, you would be in a much better position than if you had just kept gassing it, because as you're gassing it, you're going to still have forward motion, even though you're slipping and sliding around. And if you think to yourself, oh, I could just keep going, I could keep going, I made it, after the second or third puddle, if you're still driving sideways, just barely pushing through, you need to immediately stop and check your traction. And if you're sinking too low and or get stuck right then and cannot reverse or go forward, you are in a much better position, because you are likely only 50 feet to 100 feet, unless you're a real dum-dum, past the point of no return, and it'll be much easier to dig yourself out. But if you keep pushing forward, you're going to get, quarter mile to miles down a dirt road that you're not going to be able to turn back around in. And you're not going to be able to turn around in most roads like this. Your best and only option is going to be, digging yourself out. And when I say dig yourself out, just going to be grading the area around your tires enough to get some kind of flat motion, so your tire typically is going to dig itself into a little hole, so it's going to be cupped into the road. And if you picture a donut, it's going to be cupped into the road. You need to dig that out and flatten it as much as possible, so you can literally push or reverse yourself backwards, and you'll find that that'll actually work over time. A secondary option, not recommended, as you see here, all of this sagebrush. If I was stuck right now on this road, I could in fact drive through this sagebrush, and better not slow down any more than that. You have no idea. It looks like you're on stable road, but this could be so soft and you would just sink right into it. And I don't know if you can see this island in the middle, but that island is inches tall. Okay, so if you sink more than that, your other vehicles would be bottoming out. I'm higher than they are, and there's other trucks that are much higher than I am, by the way. I only have 16-inch wheels, so at 18 inches, anyway, that's one to grow on. Now we're on a county road, much better maintained. Wasn't sure if I was going to make it down that road, but I've definitely had good times out here when I was stuck. And I mean, I'm living out here, so at the time when I was stuck, I was within walking distance of somewhere I'm staying. And nothing's stable out here. Even if you had electricity, if the electricity goes out and that's what you rely on to keep warm, you're going to die. And then if you rely on wood stove, for instance, and your stovepipe gets clogged up, you could burn your cabin or house down, and or choke to death from carbon monoxide. If you have a heater buddy, propane heater buddy thing, you can die from carbon monoxide. These things are dangerous and temporary use and experience really only. You don't want to go buy or build or buy any of these things and use them without prior experience, because there's pros and cons, and your life is in danger when it's snowing or raining out here. You're going to be stuck for weeks. And at the same time, enjoyable lifestyle. You go to Walmart, stock up, buy your favorite coffee, oatmeal, and steaks, and have a barbecue every night, and enjoy the stars and satellites and meteor showers, and listen to the coyotes sing, and
it's really nice, assuming that you know how to hook up your propane tank, and that your gas lines or whatever things don't freeze over, and you have a backup system. So if your propane's not working, then your fireplace is working, your fire stove, wood stove, and did you have a bunch of wood already cut, and is it dry, and is it in the size appropriate to fit inside your stove? So not having all that stuff prepared is going to be detrimental, and also going to be an enjoyable experience as you're eating, that steak, like I said, in your enjoyable, comfortable cabin. But all those things are prep work, and that's why very few people live in these conditions, because they don't actually have their property set up or cable ready, and enjoyable everything. But the people houses I've been into that do, yeah, they're watching Netflix, having a great time, and turning on their electric heater, and they got an electric pole right in their front yard. I have a property down here in the flats, and we're driving by an electric pole right there, and just flashed by it, and that's got so all the properties down here have access to power. My mountain property has no access to power because it's over 3 miles to these poles. Possibly not as the crow flies. It might only be a half a mile or something, but I don't know how many different properties you'd have to go through, or the legal logistics of how that all works. I do think that you have to pay the power companies to install power poles every so many feet to the closest power pole, and then hook up the wiring and all that to establish your electricity to your property. So that alone is cost prohibitive for a lot of people in the mountains or country. And if they're not aware of that, then their property is going to end up being vacant. They're going to sell it or abandon it, or something. People abandon their properties because the cost of taxes, it may not seem like much or something you're even aware of, but you'll never own your property. You have to pay taxes every year. And so I bought a property, and I bought it off a company, and I pay them every month for a land payment. And in theory, that covers everything. Well, what is everything? Read the contract. I don't know. I'm sure I did once. I know I signed a bunch of stuff. And so regardless, what ends up happening is I happen to be looking at the taxes from the government website, and it shows that my property is in arrears default by like many years, like 4 years or something. It's like hundreds of dollars. Now I don't know the backstory, and I don't know why the company that's selling me the property didn't pay all the taxes year after year with the money that I've been giving them month after month for year after year, or why the property wasn't paid up to date when they bought the property. So the more sense is that they did pay up the property taxes when they purchased the property, and once they signed it over to me or started selling it to me, because I don't actually have paperwork stating I own it, then they stopped paying the taxes, and it was my problem, and they didn't mention that. If they did, I can't recollect it. It's verbal, and I don't really have any documentation stating otherwise, or how to pay taxes online or anything of the sort. And it's only after years of experience of buying other properties and research that I know how to look up the tax county website and look up property taxes and who owes what and how much and stuff like that, and found out that my property was hundreds of dollars in default. Default means that you haven't paid for so many years. It doesn't matter how much, it's a percentage, and based on how much time you haven't paid your last tax or your last bill. The government just wants their money, just like any other bill. And so after 2 years, if your property has code violations, for instance, they can expedite that after 2 years and put it up for auction. If you don't pay your taxes on your property or your house after 2 years, and the county or city has or any other government agency has issues with you, they can start auctioning off your property. They can claim possession of your property and sell it on the open auction, public auction, starting in 2 years. And after 5 years of not paying just your taxes alone, that's it. They can start proceeds the same way to sell your property. But the same thing can apply with other government agencies for something as simple as not taking out your garbage properly, or whatever issues with garbage. They can put liens on your property. Homeowners associations, for something like the color of your roses, can literally take over your property. Scam artists can do quick sales, quick title sales on your property. So, you want to know about all those things. And nevertheless, so I actually paid the taxes on my property, even though, as far as I'm concerned, I've been giving these guys money every month for 5 years. Why isn't it already paid? 6, 7 years. And I thought it was getting paid every year. So instead, I just paid the whole thing without even contacting them or figuring out what, why, and who, and where. And I will try and figure that out, make sure to verify that, in fact, they have not been taking the taxes out. No, they haven't just been scamming me, and there's no, they're not keeping the money or something, and verify that. But either way, guess what? It's your due diligence, okay, to check out your property and your rights on your property and code and different county, city, state, government, federal, whatever it is, neighbors, problems, toxic waste, trash, easement, option to even ability to get to your property, believe it or not, is not always the case. And if you don't find out all these things, you read an ad online, or a neighbor friend tells you, hey, it's a great deal, oh, la la la. It's just a bunch of nonsense until you have it documented and in a contract. And you'll notice the contract is absolutely different than what the sales ad said. So no, you're not going to go buy land and build your little tiny cabin and go hunting and camping and all these beautiful things in your RV and stuff like that with your family. 2 days a week, 4 days a month is the law. And that's in California, let alone other progressive states. And building codes apply. So if you don't have a bathroom, you're going to have to deal with these things first. So don't trust ads. You got to make sure you can get a septic tank there. You want to do research on the water. Think about your needs. I buy places for campgrounds so I can go hiking and enjoy myself in nature. So I don't have to consider certain things as much. But code enforcement is a huge one. If they're going to come poking around and tell you can't camp on your land and stuff like that, and bathroom situation, then that's not going to be a good campground. That might be a great place to build a house and raise your family, because you're going to be able to have good civilization. That's the whole definition of civilization. You want good roads, you got to pay for those roads. That's what a homeowner association is. In this case, I'm part of a community that does not have a homeowners association, and we do not pay any fees to an association, and we do not pay road fees. This road I'm traveling on for the past 5 miles is a county road, so it's maintained by the county, which is why I'm able to zip down at 20 miles an hour. Otherwise, the private roads that I started this video on are unmaintained, and you will sink in them when they get wet. And nobody is allowed on those private roads. So back to my community, I own land out here. I'm a landowner of multiple properties. So I have right to all the private roads out here, but publicly you would not. And so the people that are allowed on this road are not allowed on the road that originally jammed down. This right here is a giant business to our left. You can't really see it, but there's a giant business over there, and that's the All Tourist Ranches, which is a giant, they probably own over 1,000 acres of alfalfa ranches. And that's what they do. Agriculture is huge out here, and I'd get into it myself. I have a partner that's into it, so he could teach me some stuff. I don't know if it's viable for my property or not, even though the alfalfa farmers do it. Something about alfalfa is they flood, huge parcels of land, which I'm all for if it was natural. My properties, I have a property in a floodplain, which means it'll flood inches deep. So if you could naturally plan that out to where it floods and now your crop is getting the moisture it needs, and then harvest it later on, that's fine. But I would not want to. There goes a giant owl. I don't think the video picked it up, but it just flew by. Likely wasn't a hawk. They're not. Owls are nocturnal, but I wouldn't want to use that much water, to water, from underground. I wouldn't want to pull that out of a pump. So these people out here, they've got giant wells and stuff underground, hundreds of feet, and they're pumping thousands and millions of gallons of water, up into reservoirs and ditches, and flooding 100-acre plots, to grow alfalfa. So I think alfalfa is something where you need to flood the field, and you wouldn't be able to just use the natural flooding, even if you were in a flood zone. That would work for, maybe one crop or one watering or one season. But these alfalfa farms can grow multiple crops throughout the year along with other hay farmers. And I use the term hay generically because I don't know a lot about hay. But regardless, you can have 3 crops or more a year, So anyway, so that's the end of our 13-mile adventure, broken up over the course of many videos.